Now 7 o'clock, so we're going to get started. For those of you who I have not had an opportunity to meet, welcome and thank you for coming. I'm Bill Olson, the Superintendent of Schools. And I want to thank some of our administrators for coming tonight. We have Dr. Kerry Cleary, our Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Kathy Auth, our Director of Finance, Donna Pobuck, the Principal of the Middle School, Kevin Lacoste, the Principal of the Robinson School, and Susan Dubois, the Principal of the Nabnasset School. And we also have Courtney Moran, who's passing around some documents, who is our Director of Pupil Services. And I'm going to stand away a little bit from this because it's very, very loud. First of all, a public service announcement. For those of you who have children at the Blanchard School. Anyone here have students at the Blanchard? Just a reminder, there is no school at only the Blanchard School tomorrow. I was notified about 5 o'clock this morning that we had a severe lightning strike or a severe power surge, and it completely destroyed all of our boilers at the Blanchard School and the fire alarm system. So we have a portable boiler over there now. There will be no school tomorrow because we can't guarantee enough heat for the building. So if you have a child there, and only, once again, only the Blanchard, there'll be no school. Yes?
That parent from the back said they can't hear you.
Okay, thank you for telling me. Someone in the back said they can't hear me, so I will stand a little bit closer. Well, tonight is a night for some information to you and for us to answer some of your questions, because next year we will have one full-day kindergarten class in each of our three primary level schools, the Nabnasset, Miller, and Robinson. Well, what's the background? What's the nexus of first of all, why we don't have full-day kindergarten in Westford? Because I had an email this week, and I say this very respectfully, that a parent said, this is one of the top-rated school systems in Massachusetts, which it is, and we're always proud to say that. Why in the world don't we have full-day kindergarten? Know that about 6 years ago, I proposed it to the school committee that we have full-day kindergarten, and we fund it fully through the town appropriation. My strong feeling is that we do not have kindergarten, full-day kindergarten, in earnest unless we're all in. We're either all in or we're not. That I want funding from the town, certainly eventually, to be in place for every child to be able to attend full-day kindergarten. Now, we're not sure at this point in time whether we'll still retain some half-day sections for parents who would like to have their children attend half-day sections, but that is an option down the road. So over the last 6 years, since I provided the school committee with a report, there have been a number of other needs that have emerged each year, whether they be academic, or social emotional in nature, growing special education populations that requires additional funding. And so more and more monies have been used and needed for programs for children that are here presently and transitioning through the school system. This is my 29th year in Westford. I spent 16 years in Lowell, so this is actually going into my 30th year, about 46 years. And so I've been here for a long time and have seen the progression of enrollment and the growth of the town. And we've had years where we've had over 300 new students from the close of June to the opening in school in late August. What that brings with it is an extraordinary burden of us to fund essential classroom teachers and services, materials and supplies and capital equipment to service them. So the growth of the town has made it very difficult for us and the town in general to free up additional funds to fund full-day kindergarten. But the committee has been considering it more and more over the last several years because many of you have been telling us that you would prefer to have full-day kindergarten, and it is my strong commitment to you and the commitment of the administration, and I believe the school committee also, that we will eventually have complete full-day kindergarten in Westford. Now, what the school committee has asked me to do is to provide a pilot program for next year. That pilot program is to be one full-day classroom in each of the three primary level schools, but the second half of the day to be funded by fees. The school committee wants it to be budget neutral. And that's understandable because we are in an extraordinarily difficult fiscal time again, where state revenue is uncertain, local assessments are declining, and our budget outlook for the next 2 to 3 fiscal years is looking very difficult. So I presented the report 6 years ago. The school committee has heard from me and the primary level principals off and on that we need full-day kindergarten. And so that's when they said, let's do a pilot program. Now, the backdrop to that also, let me get it right here, is that we had an outstanding Citizens Advisory Committee last year that did a very, very detailed study on full-day kindergarten as opposed to half-day and the academic and social-emotional benefits. And that report basically confirmed what most research has shown since the late 1980s, and that is essentially that any gains that have been made by children in full-day kindergarten dissipate quickly over the first, second, and third grade. But I think we know, and all of us who are interested in full-day kindergarten sort of intuitively know that spending more time and allowing children to providing children with more in-depth understanding of topics has to be beneficial. And I, am reluctant to say that we'll eventually be one of the only school systems in Massachusetts at some point in time that will not have full-day kindergarten if we don't make some sort of commitment to it. And I think the school committee will. We have an outstanding school committee, and I think the town will also. So know that this is kind of a test year, and we're going to be providing the school committee with some data as we proceed forward. So that's the backdrop, and I didn't mean to spend too much time on it, but you need to know where we've been and what has brought us to this point. So what we're going to do for next year is we're going to have 10 sections of half-day kindergarten between the 3 schools. We'll have the 2 integrated kindergarten programs, classes at the Miller School. Now, those are different than the regular full-day class that we're going to have at each Nabnasset, Robinson, and Miller. Okay? This is a program that is established for children with special needs, okay, and have role model regular education students in sort of a 50-50 ratio. So it's a little bit different than the classes that we're talking about. For staffing needs, we will need an additional 1.5 teachers and 1.5 teacher assistants in the classrooms. And we'll need 2 newly equipped classrooms at the Robinson and the Miller School. So at the Robinson, just to give you the configuration, we're going to have an AM and PM session, 1 AM and PM session, actually 2 AMs, excuse me, and 1 PM session, half day. And then we'll have the full day kindergarten section at the Robinson. At the Nabnasset, we'll have 2 AM sections and 2 PM sections and a full day at the Nab. At the Miller, we'll have 2 AM sessions and 1 PM session for the regular half-day sessions. We'll have the 2 integrated full-day kindergarten sections, and we'll have the new regular education kindergarten class. Now, here's where it gets interesting, okay? And bear with me here. We want to make sure that there's a fair, equitable, honest way for selecting children for inclusion in the program. There'll be a registration packet, and a sheet that will be due March 23rd. We have some information tonight. There will be some information at the schools also. We've planned the full-day classes on 20 students each, 20 at the NAB, 20 at the Robinson, 20 at the Miller. What we're going to do is at the end of March, early April, we're going to have a lottery at each of the respective schools, the 3 schools. It's not going to be a system-wide because this is not centralized enrollment, sometimes that you see in the inner cities. It's going to be done and conducted at each of the respective schools, and names will be drawn, and there'll be a complete list of names drawn for the full-day kindergarten class up until the 20 openings. There'll be a second lottery for those parents who are not able to have their children selected for the full-day kindergarten class at the NAB, Robinson, and Miller. There'll be a second lottery shortly thereafter, and we'll be providing you with those dates over the next week or so for participation in the integrated class at the Miller School. Now, that will be a system-wide lottery, okay? That it's not going to be specific to the Miller School, because at the present time, our role model students and our special education students who populate those two classrooms at the Miller come from across the entire town. And we want to keep that in place. Third, if available, there'll be a lottery for positions open at the schools that are not in the child's home district. In other words, if your child is not selected in the first lottery for the regular full-day kindergarten class, if the child is not selected for one of the two integrated classrooms at the Miller School, there'll be a third lottery, and we will combine all of the names of children who have not been selected. And if there are 2 or 3 or 4 openings, we'll draw 2 or 3 or 4 names. Now, those lotteries will all be in public. Okay, so you're welcome to attend. We'll advertise when they're going to be, because I want you to know that these are conducted with integrity. Because, look, I hear the rumors around town from time to time, and I see the emails about people referring to, quote unquote, we know how the lotteries run. Well, the lotteries are run honestly and openly. It's the same thing with our school choice lotteries. We hold those in a public location, and we advertise that so people know that it's done appropriately and correctly and in accordance with the core values of this school system. The last lottery will be for the extended day program at each of the schools. Now, the fees for next year, and know that none of us really likes to charge fees. Any of us in the administration, no one in the school committee, but we've tried to financially do some careful financial projections in terms of what is it that we will need to raise in terms of revenue to fund the one full-day section at each of the 3 respective schools, and also to run the kindergarten extended day program. And so the fee will be $4,200 for both the full-day kindergarten and the full-day integrated kindergarten for the year, and a $3,500 fee for the kindergarten extended day program. Now, we anticipate about 120 students in that program, in the extended day, and that seems to be the largest, have created the largest volume of emails and calls that I've received over the last week, is the extended day program. What we've done is, for financial planning purposes, we have planned the extended day program on just a 5-day option. Now, that is not popular with some of you, and I'm well aware of that. And the principals are well aware of that also. We've currently had a 2- and a 3-day option. Here's what we're going to do, and I'm going to ask you to bear with us. I know the importance of the 2- and 3-day program to some of you, and I know you're going to address that here with us tonight. But I have an important fiduciary responsibility to make sure that I can fund the salaries of the people who work in that extended day program. And we're trying to be just a little bit conservative and careful in the planning of the funding of that program and the mechanism for funding it. So what I'm going to say to you tonight is, we're going to go through all of these lotteries that I referred to on the previous slide and populate the full-day kindergarten classes, populate the integrated kindergarten class, populate the extended day class with the 5-day students. And if there are openings in the extended day program, I honestly feel that we can consider the 2, we will accommodate the 2 and 3. But we don't know that now, and we won't know that for several weeks down the road. So I'm going to ask you to bear with me. And I know it's important. And those of you who I've spoken with directly said, we know it's not an academic program, it's daycare. And that's correct, it is daycare. And I know, as well as you do, that it's developmentally important, particularly for social skills for the students. And that's what most of you have said has been of importance to you. So I'm going to ask that you bear with us. All right? We're not trying to harm any family, any child. but I just absolutely need to assure to the school committee and to the town that I won't need to go back and ask for more money, because I can't do that. And I won't do that because we've just had to cut $152,000 from our budget for next year to fit the town manager's appropriation. So the money is not going to be there. I can tell you that right now. So please be patient with us on that. So if your child is drawn for the lottery, you'll have 10 days to confirm and pay a $420 non-refundable deposit. Okay? And the remaining balance, we'll be doing 3 payments, 8-1, 11-1, and 2-1. And I wish I could use that lexicon on TV of 3 easy payments, but it's not easy payments, and we know that. And so I think we all apologize that we have to, charge a fee for the second half. But down the road, I hope that will not be the case. All right, I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Dr. Kerry Cleary, and she's going to talk to you about the mechanics and academics of the program.
Can I ask a quick question about fees, please?
Sure.
If my child remains in just the half-day kindergarten, then it would just, be just a full day?
The question, for those of you who could not hear it, let me repeat it right here. And the reason I come back to the microphone is because this is on cable. The question is, if the child remains in a half-day program, is there no fee? There is no fee for participation in a half-day program. See, school systems are required to offer, in Massachusetts, at least a half-day program for kindergarten. Now, you can choose to send your child to a licensed kindergarten program in a private setting and not in the public school system. But school systems are obligated to to offer at least half-day, and that's on our tab. Okay? Yep.
Thank you and welcome, everybody. Now that we have talked about some of the logistics, I'm sure many of you are asking, well, what does full day look like in comparison to half day? So this first slide here compares the academic minutes in each of the half-day program and the full-day program. These half-day minutes are estimates because teachers' schedules are so different from classroom to classroom, and that's okay. It works out, the expectations are met. So I took all of the kindergarten teachers' half-day schedules and sort of just made estimations. So just consider that as you look at the half-day schedule. But you can see here, all of the content areas on the left will still be addressed, are being addressed now and will still do so, but they're just going to be stretched out a little bit, so we will have more time in each of those areas. And that's kind of the major difference. I'll talk a little bit more about what does math look like in a 60-minute schedule versus a 30-minute schedule. But we're not adding a lot of new content to the students and to their daily schedules. We're just taking what already exists and stretching it out a little bit. Now, the additional minutes that you see in the full day don't equal an additional half day of school. So in addition to those, at the bottom you will see students in the full day program will also have access to music and to art, some guidance counseling, social skills sessions, and additional choice and dramatic play. So there's not time for those areas so much in the half-day schedule. We've had to prioritize and say, what do we need to make sure that the students have when they leave the half-day program at the end of the year? And it's around academics and the areas there on the left. That said, I just want to address up front some of the common misconceptions that we've heard about over the past couple of weeks or even months. First, we have heard some parents wonder if for full-day students, are we squeezing additional academics? Are we taking a day that's already full, stretching it out, and making it even more full for those students, and sort of double dosing them with academics? And the answer is no, and I really want to emphasize that because I think that this is a common misunderstanding. By the end of the student's kindergarten year, they all have to know the same thing. We have standards in each of the academic areas, and whether students are in a half-day program or a full-day program, they have to be able to know and do those, the skills and the content at the end of the school year. So it's not that we're taking additional curriculum to add it into the full day schedule. The next concern that was brought forward was we only have right now, moving forward for next year, one full day classroom, which means the majority of the students are still going to have half-day programs. So are those half-day students then going to be shortchanged and not prepared for first grade? And I cannot emphasize enough here as well that that is not true. The answer is no. All students have to know the same content by the end of the school year. So the approach that we take will look different from half-day to full day, but there's nothing that the half-day students will be missing that will make them ill-prepared for first grade. And over the course of the past many, many years in Westford, we see that our students do well in first grade and so on and so forth as they progress through the grade levels. The third misunderstanding that we hear is for full-day students, so it's not extra academics, is it basically just napping and playtime in that second part of the day? And that answer is no as well. We have the additional half day where we can take the academics, stretch it out, and add some additional curriculum or content areas such as the arts, the music, some dramatic play when students are in school for 6 hours a day versus 2.5. We certainly have to make sure that we're fostering the whole child, developing the whole child, allowing them time to be creative, use their imagination, and play. They're 5. So it's not just strictly daycare, it's quality time, but it's structured. Lastly, full-day students will be sitting and listening for long periods of time. So while some wondered, is it kind of a waste of time? Is it just nap and play? There's another camp that wonders if students are then just going to be sitting and listening and being taught at. And this is something that's very important because we have all gone to school for this. This is our love, this is our passion, and never would we expect a 5-year-old child to sit and listen for 6 hours a day. Or even if I went back to the scheduling slide, we're saying 75 minutes for English language arts. They aren't sitting and reading for 75 minutes. The way that we approach teaching, it's very, very interactive. Students are moving around. It's fun. And in addition to knowing and understanding what they're learning, if you ask students, they would say, well, we played in math today, or we played in English language arts today. So that's our goal. And I see lots of teachers back here. Raise your hand if you're a kindergarten teacher. They would or pre-first. They would never have any children sitting in a classroom for 6 hours a day and just listening. So all of this will be developmentally appropriate for students. So here's an example of that. I showed this at the school committee meeting, so if you watch that, this may be a repeat, but I thought it was worth bringing out again. In our math curriculum, we use Everyday Math 4, and every day there's a focus lesson, which is the main area of either content or skills that we're trying to address with students. So the half-day lessons or program jumps right into the focus lesson to make sure that we address that priority skill or content area with the students. The full-day math block will focus also on that focus lesson, but it has room for some other areas such as the readiness activity. I'm going to get into these if they sound a little bit foreign to you, and also differentiation, some time for enrichment as well. So an example of that is, here is a lesson from our kindergarten curriculum where students have to learn to understand the pairs of numbers that equal 10. So 6 and 4, 7 and 3, 8 and 2, and so on. So the focus lesson that would take place in a half-day program, for example, would be the teacher may have the 10 frame, which is the array, the 2x5 array, the squares, up on an overhead, for example. And to the students, this is a school bus. And then the teacher would ask a volunteer to come up and draw a card, a number, in front of the class. And in this case, the number would be 4. So the teacher puts 4 yellow bears on the 10 frame. And then the student who drew the card would say, can I have 6 bears? Knowing that 4 and 6 make 10. So then the students at their desks may be coloring in the 4 yellow squares and the 6 so that they're doing it on their individual arrays. Maybe students are working in partners to do this as well. But that's kind of the main focus lesson. And then there's the wrap-up where the teacher asks, so what did we learn today? If you take that same topic and look through the lens of a full day period that's about 60 minutes, a teacher may have time for a readiness activity, depending on the class and what that activity is. So they may choose to do the readiness activity or may not. But in this case, the teacher may have students take the 10 frame and say, find me 6. And the students have to take those little black round counters and put 1 on each of the blocks until they get to the number 6. So this is just the teacher testing to make sure that they understand the 1-to-1, that there's 1 counter on each of the blocks before moving to the focus lesson. Then, assuming that the students are ready, then they can move on to the focus lesson that we just talked about. But a lot of times this would be done in small groups so that you can take the students who are maybe struggling a little bit more and help them with the prerequisite skills, or have students do extra practice with that skill, or do that bear activity in partners or small groups. But then also there could be a group that's doing some enrichment. So they really grasped it and the teacher identified this. So together they could be playing that game, but then the teacher takes away the 10 frame. So if a child draws an 8, they put 8 bears down, but there's not the 2 empty squares anymore to help visually prompt the student that it must be 2 more. So without that, the students really have to know it's 8 and 2 without the 10 frames helping them. So that's the kind of scaffolding that we do to make it a little bit more difficult. Eventually some students can write the 6 and 4. So if you were to walk into a classroom, it would look like organized chaos, which is so exciting. And the students would be doing things based on their own ability level. And we need a little more time for this because while teachers work with small groups, the students are rotating. So they may work with this group of 4 or 5 students while the others are doing some of these other activities, some additional games. These are just a couple of examples. And then the middle one where it says practice, there may be areas or centers where students practice something that has already been taught, and it's just revisiting to reinforce that skill. One more quick example is around science. And so kindergarten students have to understand force and pushes and pulls. So in a half-day, more condensed science lesson, we certainly make it hands-on, and in this case, there are 2 boxes that we call box cars. One is filled with gravel, the other one is empty. And so the students can go around the room in pairs and push the 2 or pull the 2 and talk to each other about what's the difference here. And we want them to figure out that the heavier box is a little bit harder, takes some more force to either push or pull. In the full day session, it would be there would be time for a little bit more inquiry-based where we don't have the variables already predetermined, like one boxcar has gravel, the other one does not. We would want the students to then figure out themselves. I wonder what would happen if we put gravel or something heavier in this one. What would that feel like? What if we took both boxes and pushed one downhill, and they're both empty, or they both have the same item in it, and one uphill? What would that mean? What would that do? So they create these what-if questions, and then can go and figure them out and explore together around the room, around the school, however the teacher structures that. So you can see one provides time for a little bit more open-ended types of activities, and we really want our teachers, our students in science to think like scientists. We don't want them to just learn what has already been discovered in science. We want them to start that inquiry type of thinking so that they can use that in the future throughout their schooling and certainly life, which is why we're all here, right? So just to summarize the timeline, we have kindergarten registration coming up on March 1st and 2nd. And March 23rd is the deadline for the applications for full-day kindergarten and extended day, because after that, we'll start preparing the different buckets for the different schools and do the lottery shortly thereafter. End of March, very early April will be the drawing. We'll communicate that to you, of course. And then in May, you will have the information nights, and at that point, you'll know what type of program your child will be in, so you can go to your respective school and listen with more of a purpose. You'll know if your child's in full day K, half day K, or what have you. So that said, I hope we gave you an overview to answer a lot of your questions, but we are here now to answer any questions that you may have. And we're going to ask that you come up to the microphone, or if you're right here, I can pass the mic off.
Two questions. One, if I want the full day, but if I don't win the lottery for the full day, I want a backup of the extended day, should I sign up for both during the registration? As well as the second question, will early morning drop-off be available for both programs?
In regards to your first question, on the registration form, it says, would you like to be considered for the full day option in that lottery? You would check yes in that case. Then it says, if you didn't get chosen, would you like to be in the Miller School Integrated K lottery? You could check yes or no. If you don't get chosen for that either, or if you didn't check yes there, would you like to be considered for the kindergarten extended day? So on that one form, we will know if you want that as a backup plan to be in that lottery. In regards to the drop-off?
Not sure if this is working or not. The early arrival program is really operating independently of the full day K. So that will continue to be in place next year at all of our elementary schools. Just to let you know, just a brief history for 10 seconds on the early arrival. We started that program, and it's turned out to be very successful when we started charging bus fees. And we were greatly concerned that there'd be significant congestion in the driveways and parking lots. And so we wanted to sort of ration the pace of arrival of students. That has worked out very well. I hope it's been a benefit to you, because it's allowed you to get, a lot of you to get to work earlier and on time. Next, another question? Yes. I'm sorry, if you could say that a little bit louder, please, or come to one of the microphones so everyone could hear you. Yes, full-day kindergarten children will be transported on the regular routes in the morning and in the afternoon. We have enough capacity at the elementary level. It's really the middle and high school numbers that drive the number of buses that we actually contract for. And so we do have enough capacity at the elementary level to transport those students. The only case that would not be true is if we have some openings in the full-day sections, whether they're the regular sections or the integrated full-day sections, that are not in your school district. And if your child is selected, you would be responsible. It's similar, very similar, same thing as open enrollment. You'd be responsible for transporting your child to that out-of-district school. Yes?
The question, I think, is for half-day students, are there bus services? And the answer is yes.
Oh, absolutely. Nothing will change for the half-day students. And once again, for full-day students, as long as they're in their respective district, they'll just be getting on the bus with their older siblings in the morning, as some of the half-day students do now, but they'll be coming home at 3 o'clock, at the 3 o'clock dismissal, getting home later in the afternoon with their peers also, elementary peers. Yes? The timing of them will be consistent with what our school day is right now. It'll start at 9 or 9:05 in the morning and end at 3 o'clock, 3:05 in the afternoon. Well, that is the question is, what happens if a child is not selected for the regular full-day kindergarten, the integrated full-day kindergarten, or the extended day? That is a possibility, although we believe it's remote, because keep in mind that the full-day kindergarten classes that we're implementing at each of the 3 schools will draw some of those students who would ordinarily be enrolling in the extended day program. So we think there's going to be enough capacity there. The question is whether or not there'll be enough capacity for us to be able to allow the 2- and 3-day option, which is, I know, important to a number of you here. The answer to that is yes. And the question was, for those of you who could not hear, will there come a point that we may have to say to a parent, your child was not selected for any of the 3, full-day regular, full-day integrated, or the extended day? That's a possibility. And in that case, regrettably, we would have to say to you that you would have to find daycare in one of the daycare providers either in or around Westford, which is the case right now for some of you who've had kindergarten children in the past when we have not had enough capacity in our extended day program. Yes? I'm going to ask you because I have a difficult time, and this is my problem. I have no hearing in my right ear, so I'm going to ask you to ask the question as loud as you possibly can. You can opt out of it. However, there will be some financial, repercussions. What we're going to, I believe, and Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, we've said that you can make that decision within the first month of school, okay? And although it's a non-refundable deposit, but you can withdraw your student. It's just that you may not be able to get that payment back if it's beyond September. Now, you may also say at some point in time that you'd like your child to move from the full day to the half-day session, and that's a possibility that we're prepared to deal with also. Okay, and hopefully we could take a child who's in the half-day and substitute that child for your child if that's the case. But know that we just, from a financial perspective, need to make sure we have the revenue. We don't mean to penalize you or harm you financially, but we need to make sure that you make a commitment financially so that we can fund the program. Okay? Yes?
Yeah, good question. The question was, is there a difference in curriculum between the new full-day classrooms and the integrated full-day? And the answer is no. The main difference between these new full-day classrooms and the integrated full-day is the level of supports that are in place in that classroom for those students whose IEP indicates that they are recommending the full-day kindergarten integrated program. From a role model student's perspective of things, the curriculum is the same. In terms of your question about IEPs and how that impacts, that's very much individualized based on the needs per each student's IEP. So it may be modified or there may be accommodations as needed for the student.
Other questions?
In terms of the full day, those students who, per the IEP team, feel as though the level of need is such that for that individual student that they need full day programming, then they would be recommended for the Miller integrated program. The kindergarten extended day is simply for convenience for parents and would not be part of the requirement for meeting an IEP or the needs of a student on an IEP.
Your question, once again, is if they're not selected for the extended day program, or any of the full-day programs.
Yeah, so we look, no, not unless the IEP and the services needed are, and the team indicates that there is a need for full day. There are students who will be, or are currently in the half-day program that are on IEPs and do get services, but they aren't at the level of need that they're recommended for the integrated full-day program. And they are taken out of the classroom, and there is no static time where the kids aren't doing anything, so those who can be taken out aren't necessarily missing things. So, and that happens from K to 12. So what we do is we look at the individual, we look at the schedules, and try to make the most appropriate fit in terms of timing within that 2.5 hours.
Other questions? Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. Why are we limiting the full-day kindergarten program to one class per school? This essentially comes from the fact that there is no compelling research that shows that a full-day program academically in English language arts and math provides any real longitudinal gains. However, in our discussions with the school committee understands that there is a growing desire among many parents in town for full-day programming. And so this is sort of a pilot program in terms of our beginning to introduce full-day kindergarten programming in the Westford Public Schools. What we're going to do at the end of the year is we're going to be providing surveys and questionnaires to you. We're going to have some focus groups also to get your input in terms of what you have felt for those of you whose children are in the full-day program, in terms of your experience and your preference. Because I think it's important for me to convey back to the school committee and to the town as a whole, because this is an appropriation matter, a monetary appropriation matter for town meeting, that the preference of parents is for full-day kindergarten programming. And I want to be able to provide both some quantitative and qualitative data at the end of the year to the school committee about how our students compare. So it's a test run of full-day kindergarten. And we appreciate the school committee allowing us to do this, because we've been talking about it for about 6 years now. And I want to just say once again, I want to thank those people who served on the Citizens Advisory Committee, because they just did a superb job in the study and the analysis of we viewed about 40 pieces of research on full-day kindergarten. And it's interesting to all of us as educators that many, and well, I'd say most of the statistically valid research studies have shown that gains in math and reading are not sustained over a longer period of time. But I think, once again, intuitively, we know that full-day exposure has to bring some advantages. Now, let me just pause for 1 second. May I just, through a show of hands, a very unscientific poll, get an idea, and I know you're here because you're interested, but just let me see the hands of those of you who really would favor this school system in the future having full-day kindergarten program. Okay. All right. And thank you for letting me know. There are, and I will say, and there are a number of parents who still prefer half-day programming because they think it's more appropriate for their child, and that is absolutely fine. And so going forward, we're going to keep you informed, and we're going to keep the school committee informed in terms of our recommendations on kindergarten, half-day, full-day, etc. More questions? Yes. May I just say to you, in answering the consideration of a 3.5 day, there were a lot of things that are going to be on the table in terms of our study this year of how the half-day programming is operating in relation to full day. And we have not ruled out in the future looking at maybe reconfiguring. And here's what I want to talk with our staff too, because over the years we've had some great conversations with our kindergarten staff. And believe me, they know what is in the best interest of your children and how to make it happen. And so we won't rule out the possibility of looking at some different configurations of the length of the kindergarten day. If we add more on certain days, we'd probably have less on other days. But that sustained amount of time might be a possibility. It's just we spent most of our time talking about the implementation of the one full day class. So now we need to study that, but also what are the other alternatives? And the Citizens Advisory Committee did an excellent job on providing some alternative formats for kindergarten programming also. Yes? Not for this year. And the reason for that is all of our planning has been done based on our direction from the school committee, which I think was appropriate, our space analysis, and our financial analysis. So that's something that we look to report out to the school committee and discuss towards the end of this school year, and actually before the end of this school year, as we're in budget preparation time, when I mean school year, the next school year, the 2016-2017 school year. So there are a lot of things that we'll be discussing with the school committee. But for this year, for this next year, the 2016-2017, there will be only one class per school. You had a question over here. Not at the present time, because we want to stick with that configuration and hold true to that we told the school committee that we were going to implement. That would require some conversation with our building principals and our staff also. And I don't want to make any last-minute decisions to make promises to you and then 1 or 2 months, 3 months down the road say, oops, we can't do that now. So I want to stick with the model that we have. That's one of the alternatives that we will be looking at down the road, though, to see if that could possibly work.
And if I could just add on to this year, I think when you look at the visuals that we had up, we had an AM and a PM stacked on top of each other, so you think, we'll just remove the line, and then there's a full day. But we have a full class worth in the AM and a full class worth in the PM. So if we just merged the two classes, we would still need another class to accommodate that other group of students.
And that's an excellent point. So it's not only financial, educational, but certainly it's facilities. And here's where, in fact, tomorrow we have another facilities study committee meeting that we're going to be discussing. What we're looking at is we're looking at the projected enrollment in the future and our space capacity. There are some people who think we can close a school right now. I happen to be not among those people because we still have over 5,200 students in our school system. So thank you for adding that on, Kerry, because that's an important space issue, particularly at a school like the Nabnasset where we're tight right now. Yes.
For students who are on an IEP who are recommended for the full-day integrated Miller classroom, which I think is your question, they are automatically in there. The lottery system is for the peer role models who are not on IEPs. So the students who qualify for that absolutely get in. That would be determined at the annual meeting, IEP meeting. And it's based, yeah.
I'd put your child's name in the lottery anyway.
Yeah.
because
You're
that-
saying if you're not yet aware whether or not your child will be recommended? How does the timing work with that, Courtney?
Some of those discussions have already started, and it also depends on what your student is currently receiving for services. So if they're on a half-day program, then most likely they're going to consider to be in the half-day kindergarten. If they're receiving a full-day preschool program that's pretty intense, then per their IEP, we'll have to continue to offer those services unless they've demonstrated tremendous growth and that they would be coming off of that.
Yes. That's correct. Yes. That decision is on a year-by-year basis, same with, excuse me, any open enrollment decision based on the space availability. What we try to do is if we have a child in a school under open enrollment, and we have the space the following year and the parent wishes to keep the child there, we will do everything to accommodate you on that.
And just to repeat that, the question was if you're sending your child to one of the other spots that is not in your neighborhood school. So if you're a NAB parent and you send your child to Robinson, you're in the drawing for their extra spot, then is that child able to stay at Robinson for the remainder of the K-2 experience?
Yes, and I'll get right to you. Yes. I can't honestly guarantee that we're going to push that up a little bit. We need to go through the kindergarten information nights, a couple of which are in, well, those are in May, excuse me. We need to go through that, the registration next week. Then we need to determine those dates that the lotteries will be. What I'll do is I'll sit down with Kerry, I'll sit down with the principals. If we can move them up, we'll make every effort, but I'm not sure that we'll be able to do that just yet. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, you can. Question was, can you skip the second and third lotteries if you only want to be in the first and the fourth? Yes, you can. Yes. I'm sorry? Yes, we're going to, there will be a waiting list in each respective school. Okay, and that will be available at the schools, and the principals will be able to inform you of that at each of their respective schools. Okay. Someone who hasn't asked the question yet, and I'll go right back to you. Yes. Well, we'll know during our budget preparation. We will be having discussions throughout the course of the 2016-2017 school year with the school committee to let them know of the success associated with the full-day kindergarten program. We'll talk to them about facilities needs. We'll talk with them about budget. And there's where we need to enter into deliberations with the town, with the finance committee and the selectmen and the town manager, the town administration, in terms of how do we fund, if the school committee wishes to go forward with a more full implementation of full-day kindergarten, how will that be funded? Because, look, as a person who's been here many, many years and knows the finances very well, I don't see this being funded out of the town's general fund appropriation. I really honestly think that we're going to need an override question before the voters to fund full implementation of full-day kindergarten. I honestly do. Because Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think our cost estimate was about $1 million to implement full-day kindergarten, and that's a big price tag. And that money can't be taken out of the current budget appropriation that we have, because many of you know we have one of the lowest per pupil cost factors and expenditure factors in the entire state. We're one of the top 1, 2, or 3 school districts in the entire state of Massachusetts in terms of performance. We're down in the bottom 20% or so of the school districts in terms of per pupil. Now, that's a double-edged sword, because that begs the question, well, why would you need more money if you're doing that for such a low cost? And it's just that there are some things that we aren't able to do. So I think it's going to take an override for that. But I'll leave that up to the school committee to make that decision. Just know, and I have to say, one of the things that has benefited us extraordinarily well in this town for many, many years is we've had excellent school committees who have been very passionate about providing the funding and the services for children year after year after year. And that's what makes it so enjoyable to work in this community. One. No, there were no children turned away. And hopefully there won't be any next year with, we think, that those children who would ordinarily be in extended day, some of them will be going into the full day class. But we added another section this year because of the demand that was particularly high at the Nabnasa. If you're in the lottery and on the initial 5-day basis, first of all, if financially we can accommodate going down to 2 or 3 day, and if you have expressed that, we'll make every effort to have your child placed in that 2 or 3 day option. Well, I'm going to encourage you to put your name in up front, quite honestly. And we're going to learn as we go in terms of the level of interest. How many of you, just out of curiosity, because I've probably had a half dozen emails in the past week about the 2 to 3 day, how many of you are interested in the 2 or 3 day extended day option? Okay. Okay, so there's a fairly substantial number in the room. So we're going to have to stay in touch with you on that process. We're just going to need to see how it shakes out financially for us, and if we can accommodate 2 or 3 day children. Did we put that on the form? Yeah, if we could, we didn't put that on the form initially, but I think it's probably worth looking at the number of hands here, adding that to the form that you'll fill out for a full day. Okay.
I also think that we can add that interest, or we can add that line to garner information about your interest. But I think you'd have to, right now, the only option for consideration really is the 5 day, so you have to be very clear that you wouldn't be interested at all in the 5 day. You're just telling us through this second line that if it's a possibility for 2 or 3 days, you would like to be part of that pool. You would decline it, you wouldn't pay your deposit, and we would give your spot to the next person on the waiting list. Right.
I believe so.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, it is. So, that's correct. The, no, the only time that you would, the question is, if you're in the NAB district, will you only be considered for the full-day program in the NAB? And the answer is yes. However, if there are other openings, if we should not fill the 20 spots in either the Robinson or the Miller School, we would, your child's name would go into a lottery for selection if you wanted that, if you wanted to have your child go to a full day in another school district. That's correct. That's absolutely correct. You're responsible for that transportation. And I want to thank Ken. Ken was one of the outstanding citizens of the town who served on the full-day kindergarten study committee. Is there anyone else here tonight who served on that? Because that was just an outstanding, Sheila Graham, one of our staff members. That's just an outstanding job. Oh, Avery, I'm sorry, I could not see you up there. And Avery Adam, who was on our school committee also. And I want to thank Erica Cole and Arthur Benoit, our school committee members, for coming tonight. And I hope I haven't missed anyone. But they did an outstanding job over about a 6 or 7 month time frame. And any of you we'll be glad to have you take a look at the study. You know, we'll have a copy at each school. It was just, and it's on the website. It's a magnificent job that they did. Yes, sir. Well, the AM and PM classes, the AM starts at about 9 o'clock, ends about 11:30. That allows those kids to go home and on those buses to do another run that starts about 12:30 to about 3 o'clock for the second session. Most of the determination of who's in AM and who's in PM is based on the geographic dispersion of the students, so that we don't have buses running all over town and doing a 60-mile route. We try to look at where the students are located and compact those bus routes so the kids are not on the buses for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. Not if they're in a daycare in Littleton. If they're a daycare in Westford, we oftentimes make stops at daycare centers because the law, the regulations, the transportation and regulations encourage that, because so many parents are working, both parents working and dropping their children off at daycare, that we stop at daycares and pick up children. Now, that daycare center, however, would have to be located within your respective school district. We couldn't pick it up over on down near the Acton line, which is down in the Robinson district, to come over to the NAB. So it would have to be a daycare in the NAB district. Yes. Well, we're keeping an eye. The question is, are there any statewide grants to help fund full-day kindergarten? We're keeping an eye on the governor's budget and where that winds up, and coming out of the conference committee and through the joint conference committee and the legislature, to see what kind of funding. There's been some talk that some funding will be reduced. There's talk that it won't be reduced. We have looked at, over the years, there have been some planning grants from the Department of Education for the implementation of full-day kindergarten. That's generally a $10,000 planning grant. We have chosen not to apply for those because oftentimes the stipulation is that you have to implement the full-day kindergarten program the following fiscal year. That's just seed money, and we could never guarantee that on a financial basis. So we're looking at it carefully to see what's going to come out of the next year's budget from the governor and the legislature and see what is eligible to apply for without putting us at a financial risk that commits us to some expenditure that the town may actually not be able to bear. So we've got to be strategically careful about that, because lots of people say, well, there's grant money all over the place. Well, there is, but oftentimes it's very categorical in nature with tight stipulations, and we don't want to get backed into a corner financially based on taking and accepting a state grant. Yes? Yes. Well, I believe, let's see, you're talking about half-day sections? Let's see. Oh, extended day. Yeah, there's a morning session and an afternoon session. So 20 in the morning, 20 in the afternoon at each building. That's correct. Mhm. Yes. If you could yell, because you're really far back there. Terry, did you hear that?
In terms of the half-day, then you are informed more toward the end of June, whether it's AM or PM. So at the end of March, I'm sorry? That's right.
Yes.
I'm not following.
No, I can't hear. An extended day. Yep. No.
So if you get into extended day, then you're essentially there for the full day. So if your child is dropped off in the morning for school, for academics, and stays in the PM for extended day, then their busing is before and after school, or their arrival and dismissal time. Whether it's extended day in the morning or afternoon, their hours in the school will be the same.
Right. Yeah, the composition of AM and PM classes has to be determined, and then we work with the extended day in terms of whether a child is in AM or then that naturally falls into place. I think I better talk to you individually, because I'm not only having a difficult time hearing you back there. I need you to come on down and talk to that.
What ends up happening is we give the list of those of those children who are accepted into the extended day program to D-bus. And then they may have to adjust the geographic lines to accommodate the amount of students being transitioned during the midday run. So that means if your neighborhood was moved slightly to accommodate the numbers, their neighborhood children would all be moved together. Does that make sense? It wouldn't be just like randomly selected. It would just be as if the district lines were changed to make sure that there were balanced classes. But it doesn't impact the lottery at all because it's all done equitably.
No, I think,
It's
Yeah.
the geographic location is what
yeah, it very much depends on, as Donna said, the geographic location of where you're located. If you have, and I mean it seriously, if you want to talk about this more after we finish up tonight, we'll be glad to talk to you. Yes? Yes, the question is, can we clarify the difference between full-day kindergarten and extended day? Extended day is essentially daycare. It is not an academically oriented program. It is more socially, a socially developmental program. Okay, the kids are involved in lots and lots of activities and interesting activities. Do they learn things? Yes, but it doesn't have the same structure and academic nature that a full-day program does. It's the same dismissal time. Yes, it is. Yes. If you're, are you saying you live, did you say you live in the Miller district or the NAB district? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a good question, yeah. So to clarify, if your child is in the integrated full-day kindergarten program at the Miller, you register at the school district in which you live in, but then your child will attend the Miller, and all of that information will be forwarded. Okay? Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, with an open lottery in which everyone has an equal chance, it's virtually impossible to do that. And you hope that the numbers are such that there's a good balance, a gender balance in the classroom. Sometimes it will happen by chance. Sometimes it won't happen by chance.
Some of the strategies that we've used in the past at the Miller Integrated K is that we put boys in a bucket, girls in a bucket, and alternated. So we're going to sort of see what we get in terms of that and evaluate those specifics before we do the drawing.
we're going to end up with a class
Right.
that's all girls and all very young, because we do want those positive role models in the integrated class. So there's a lot that's taken into consideration for this.
Kevin, that location?
We haven't determined the exact location of it yet, but we are taking into consideration transitions and things like that. If they are to share the same classroom, we'll make sure that when we take a look at integrated arts and what time the students would be dismissed, would be the least disruptive if as possible.
Yes. The kindergarten enrollment in each specific school, I probably should have brought that with me, but it's in the Robinson, it would be in the, I believe, low 90s, if I remember correctly, somewhere around there. Middle school, the kindergarten enrollment for next year, I believe I projected is about 115, maybe, somewhere around there. And Navnasset, I think, was about 120 or so, 120. So those are the rough projections. The kindergarten projections are always difficult, and the first grade projections also, because it doesn't precisely correlate with the number of births 5 years earlier. What we're finding is the in-migration, out-migration factor of families, young families with parents in peak child-bearing years moving into town is having more of an effect than actually the number of births. Yes? Yes, it does. Yes. The question was, does the extended day class have its own room? And the answer is yes. That's correct. Right. It's used for both the 20 kids in the morning, 20 kids in the afternoon. The question is, on the extended day, you said, could we devote an extended day classroom to a full day kindergarten? Is that what you're? We've done that this year. We've reduced the number of extended day to open up a classroom for a full day. And have we ever asked parents if they would fully fund, if I've got your question correctly, fully fund kindergarten? Well, first of all, a full day, at the present structure, we're required to fund half day, okay, because that's what school systems are required to do. I wouldn't just ask the parents. There's where my feeling is, look, whether you're in preschool, kindergarten, or grade 12, the education of the students in this town is a town-wide obligation and responsibility. And so I wouldn't put the incidence of cost on just a limited number of people. There's where we go to all of the voters, all of the residents, and say, this is what we'd like to do, this is how we'd like to fund it, we're looking for your approval, and hopefully they would do it. That's the way the budget certainly works in general, as we look to the town to fund our programs and services, whether it's the fire department, police department, school department, and I wouldn't put that incidence just on kindergarten parents. Okay. Well, we know this is a relatively wealthy community, but that, as we know, does not mean that everyone is in a financial position to be able to afford that. And so that gets into kind of the haves and the have-nots that I want to always try to avoid, and I know the school committee always wants to try to avoid also. So that's why I said at the beginning, we're either going to be all in or not, because when we implement, and at such time we implement full-day kindergarten program, I want, my expectation is that the town would be willing to fund it, okay? And that's what I'm going to propose. Yes? Extended day or kindergarten? We generally have around 19 or 20, could be 21. Mm-hmm. The integrated class numbers are included, okay? And so the integrated will be housed at Miller, but the population of children will be from across the district, both those children who are on IEPs and those children who are not on IEPs. Those children will come from across the school district and not just the Miller district.
this year we have approximately, across the 2 integrated kindergarten classrooms, I'd say we easily have 10 children that come from Nab and Robinson. So well, according to this number, if it's 20 per class, it would be 120. We do cap the integrated kindergarten class at roughly 16. It, yeah.
Yes, it would be. All right. Pardon me? That's correct. Yeah. And
Right.
not that I'm aware of.
Right,
No,
these
that
are
will-
projections, right, so these are projected numbers. All students, of course, at the NAB who register for K will have a spot at the NAB. And if there is an influx beyond our capacity, then we would have to add an additional classroom, so based on the need.
Yeah. We've been quite accurate with our projections in the past, so I don't anticipate the need for any additional classes. The difficulty is also in grade 1, where lots of parents enroll their children in private kindergartens, and then they come into the Westford Public Schools in grade 1. That's one of the real points of intrigue for us every year in doing the enrollment projections. But for the most part, we've been quite accurate with our projections over the years, yes. School choice? What I'm going to do is limit the enrollment in full-day kindergarten to Westford residents only. Okay? Now, I'm not sure at this point in time also if we're going to have any kindergarten openings to be considered for school choice. The law requires that each superintendent before June 1st provide the school committee with a report on what our enrollment looks like for the following year and potential openings for school choice students. I haven't done that yet because I need to see what kindergarten registration looks like coming up next week, and as we go a little bit deeper into the year, how many families have moved in to the school system. We've actually grown in enrollment since October 1st, which is when we submit our official enrollment to the state. So I'm not sure if we're going to have any kindergarten openings through school choice, but even if we do, my decision is to limit it to residents of Westford who essentially pay the taxes and fund the school system. And so not try to penalize anyone, school choice, but I think that's the fairest thing to do. Yes. No, we're going to go ahead with the plan as designed for next year because one of the things I don't want to do is violate the direction we have received from the school committee. I want to be very respectful of that because they're very cognizant of what's going on in the community, both from your educational needs and the needs of your kids, but also financially. And so we're going to stay with the one class in each of the 3 buildings for next year. Any, yes? Well, you'd be able to contact the principal. Principals would certainly let you know what the ratios are, the balance of, the gender balance in each section.
Areas, the way that Carrie described, with dividing boys and girls, and we have it even balanced across both integrated classes. 10 boy, well, there's 16 in those classes, 8 and 8. So.
Yes. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. If you could. Mhm.
That's right. Yes,
Yes.
we apologize. 4 half-days and 1 full day. Thank you. Every child
Yeah.
goes to school Monday through Friday. And so if your child's in an AM class, they're in one of those top 2 classrooms, right? If each square represents a classroom, and they would go AM Monday through Friday. So then you would put your name in the lottery for the full-day kindergarten classroom at Nabnasset. If you were chosen in the lottery for full-day K, it would be 5 full days. You got it.
Are they twins? All right. What the law says with regard to twins and triplets is that it's basically the parent's choice whether or not they want them to be separated or not. So we would take the second child also into the program. There are some schools, so the reason for the law is that there have been some school systems that have made a unilateral decision to say, well, it's better for us to separate you 2 twins. And that may not necessarily be the case. And so that's what it's Chapter 71 is, I believe it's Section 90 of the Mass General Law that says that it's the parent's choice to keep them together or not. Any other questions? Yes. Good and loud, please. I don't know whether that was incorporated into the research of the Citizens Advisory Committee or not.
No, we have data in-house that we collect that is normed outside of Westford Public Schools. For those lower grade levels, we are not using Edwin Analytics. That's something that's developed by the state, some data collection tools, and there are concerns about Edwin, and we will certainly be tracking our students' progress in both half-day and full-day using our own devices. One major one in both math and ELA is the DIBBLES. There is not, because they are aware that districts are pushing for full day. They are aware that the state or the regs require half day, and so they aren't willing to commit one way or another.
It'll be interesting to see in our discussions what we focused on periodically, particularly in our space needs utilization and planning for full-day K, is to see if the state will eventually require full-day kindergarten. Not sure under the current administration, wait and see, but there's been so much emphasis over the last 8 or 9 years placed on early intervention and early childhood education that it would be a surprise to me if the state at some point in time doesn't require a school district to have full-day programming in part or in full. Now, my estimation is that they would allow a phase-in over a 2 or 3 year period, because keep in mind that most educational buildings, most facilities that have been built over the last 60, 70, 80 years have been built on half-day programming. And so school systems may need some transition time to find additional space if that becomes required by, legislated by the state. Yes? Mm-hmm.
Not the full day program, but it does for extended day.
That's correct.
The question was about flex spending,
Right.
and you would not qualify for that for the tuition-based full-day program, but you do for extended day.
Right. Because the extended day is considered daycare. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, what was the question? Well, we think that there will be a number of students drawn away from that program in populating the full-day classrooms, and we need to make sure that we have enough, you know, in the NABNASA, we're going down from 2 sections to, excuse me, to 1 section next year, so there's a significant loss of revenue. Kathy, anything else that needs to be added?
The main reason the fee has gone up this year, as Bill said, is because we're weighing all of the programs together. We have a set number of costs that we have to cover, and the fee was set to allow us to be able to reach that revenue level to meet those costs. And history for the last, I think the extended day program has been around for over 10 years. But the fee stayed fairly stable for quite some time, which was great for the parents who were able to take advantage of it. But you know, salaries have gone up, costs have gone up, and just in general, we need to look at that fee every year and make adjustments, and this is the year that the adjustment was needed. Right, you're right. I believe that it does meet the costs of the program, and you know, that is information that I have to share if anyone wants to see the details of the cost of the program. We're not allowed to make a profit on any of these programs. We're only allowed to cover our costs. So as the costs rise, the fees have to also go up. The fees, the $3,500 to cover extended day is going to cover the costs of extended day, and the tuition that comes in from the full day programs will cover the costs of those programs. And the costs in those programs are higher because professional teachers staff those rooms, whereas in the extended day program, they're wonderful staff, but they are not licensed teachers, they're teacher assistants, so the cost is slightly less in those kindergarten extended day classrooms.
Yes.
The way it is right now, and as Bill said earlier, we're going to pull all the names from the lottery and we're going to see where everything shakes out. But the way it stands now, it is only a 5-day program. You have the choice, if you are in that program and choose to only send your child for 3 days, you can certainly do that, but the fee stays the same. Mostly because, you know, obviously because we need that revenue to cover the cost of the program, the staff and the space needs and that type of thing.
Yes. That's correct. You'll know, right, it'll be closer to the end of May and early June that you'll know that when the classes are actually composed. No, that's correct. Because a lot of that depends on, as I said, the geographic dispersion of the children. Okay? Yes? Probably not. Now, keep in mind, the projection of 120 is a projection. So, you know, sometimes it's a little bit over, sometimes it's under. But there's where the registration coming up next week will give us very important information in terms of how accurate our projections have been. And there have been very few instances in the past where we've had to go back to the school committee in the town to ask for an additional, let's say, half-time person. But, you know, it does happen from time to time. But we think we've accounted for enough space for all of the kids that we're projecting. Yes? Not yet. We'll be in the process of doing that over the next several weeks, and may stretch into early into the summer also. Okay. Could be a combination of the two. The question will be, will there be new hires or asking maybe half-time people to go full-time? Probably be a combination of the two. Yes? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. No, well, the recreation, well, the question is there any daycare after 3 o'clock? The recreation program runs a program that we started with them back about 15 years ago. It's the Westford Partnership for Education, where we provide space for them to run programs, and oftentimes they run them till 6 o'clock in the evening. Okay, they don't go beyond that, but there is program availability beyond 3 o'clock if you need it. But that you would work with the recreation department in Westford directly. Okay? Yes. We'll get there eventually. I told people in the school system that I will not retire until we have full-day kindergarten in Westford Public School.
My question, I guess, just is what, as a parent, what more do you need from us to help move forward?
Well, we're going to be meeting with you off and on through the year. I prefer to do it at each of the respective schools, just to, and we'll let you know in terms of maybe a coffee in the morning, or it could be something in the evening, because we need to provide that information to the school committee. Okay, and we would invite, school committee members if they could make it to hear, because I think it's important, because they really do want to do the right thing for children in this school system. So one of the important things is collecting information from you in terms of your preferences, what you've observed. We'd like to give it a few months first, though, so that we can hear the good and the bad and what needs to be improved and what's working well, so that we can bring that back in recommendations to the school committee. Okay? Yes? There'll be, the 120 extended day will be 40 positions at each of the 3 schools, 20 in the morning and 20 in the afternoon at the NAB, 20 in the morning, 20 in the afternoon at the Robinson, 20 in the morning, 20 in the afternoon at the Noah. So that counts. That's correct. We try to set a reasonable number, about 20, so that it doesn't become too large for the staffing that we have. Yes? Did I speak with you on the phone today? No, okay. Because that was precisely the same question that a parent asked me today. What's the difference between having all full-day slots or having some in the extended day, and having some 5-day and some 2 and 3? We just need to, be conservative and careful. We're hoping that we can offer some 2 and 3-day slots. Okay? We just don't know yet. But that's going to take a little bit of time. We don't have everything worked out with as much precision as we would hope, because we just don't know what the demand is going to be just yet. So if you would, and I hate to be ambiguous, because if there's one thing I don't like, it's standing up and giving answers that don't mean anything. But that answer doesn't mean anything to you, quite honestly. It's just, I need some time. I need some time to take a look at how this is all going to work out before I can tell you whether or not we'll take 2 and 3-day, children. Okay? Yes. Well, the fall lotteries will be in a reasonably close time frame. I can't say precisely 10 days, but we're not going to drag it out over a 2-month period. I can tell you that right now, because you need to make plans. And particularly those of you who are on flexible spending plans and daycare matters, that's important, very important to you. So we're going to make it as tight as possible. And one of the things we're going to do is, over the next couple of work days, really hone in on when those dates are going to be. Okay, I wish we had, could tell them to you tonight, but we spent most of our time just working out mechanics here in terms of how this is all going to play out. Okay? So I don't mean to be indefinite, but I have to be with some answers tonight, and I apologize. Are you saying if you're drawn, because I had a very difficult time hearing you. If you're drawn, well, unless you tell us that you don't want to participate in that full day, and we'll draw another name for the full day, and then that's correct. That's correct.
That's right.
That's a risk involved.
The sequence is first fill the full-day kindergarten slots, because we think that that's a higher demand at this point in time.
No,
Right, we won't know in advance. We'll collect the information, and shortly thereafter, as quickly as we can turn around, we're going to draw each name, and so we'll only have the amount in each of those buckets, so to speak, a day or two or 3 max before you do, because you're welcome to come and observe the lottery.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's correct. That's correct. Yep. Anything else? Because at 9 o'clock I begin to sing at this microphone, and you don't want to hear that, right? So, I want to thank you. Just know that we will be glad to speak with you at any time if you want to call, if you want to come in, if you want to email us. I always enjoy talking with you on the phone. Okay, so don't ever hesitate. I always tell parents, don't apologize, because most parents call and say, gee, I'm very sorry to be calling you. Well, that's what we're here for. So if you want to call us, please call us. If you want to come in, we're always glad to talk with you in person also, or by email. All right? So we'll end it, and I appreciate you coming very, very much. Thank you for your interest in the full-day kindergarten, and hopefully it'll work out very well for your children for next year. But stay in touch with us, and we'll stay in touch with you also. Thank you.